Welcome to another edition of Folks Talking Sports. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me is Andy Yanez of Gallery Sports and James Mueller from for the time being, still the Daily Cougar, but he'll be getting a job working, landing in the professional ranks soon enough. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, Kris. We're ready for a jam-packed show. A lot to talk about.
Lots to talk about. Andy, if you don't mind, do me a favor and just quote tweet that Jaland Lowe is joining us on Folks Talking Sports. And without further ado, looks like my man is riding in the car. I hope he's not driving as he's going to talk to us. So that's good. I don't know if his dad can drive. I don't know. But we're going to bring him in, the winner of the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award from Fort Bend Marshall, going to Pitt, Mr. Jaland Lowe. How are you, young man?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing great. How does that sound, man? Has it gotten old yet? Has it gotten tired yet for you to be referred to as the winner of the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award?
No, I won't get tired. I mean, I love hearing it for sure.
Were you surprised?
Just a tad bit. Yeah, I was hoping I would get it. I wasn't 100% positive, but I was hoping I would get it.
Congratulations again to you. And I think I told you after when we took the picture, when your mom made me take a picture, but I was happy for you because Jaland, Andy, James, you guys know Jaland's been a guest on Folks Talking Sports earlier in the year, back in, I think, November. So he's been on twice. But the first time he was on, he mentioned how one of his goals for the season was to win the Guy V. Lewis Award. So as a member of the committee, I was glad to hear that. And now you are the winner. Jaland, just give me your thoughts on it a few days later that you are the top boys high school player in the greater Houston area.
I mean, I'm just grateful, to be honest with you. I mean, it was just a great accomplishment, all the hard work I've been through, and just to have this to cap it off with my senior season has just been great. And I'm just glad that you guys and everybody else decided that I was the right person for this award.
And let me say this for those who are wondering. Yes, I am on the committee, but no, I don't have a vote in it. I just count the votes. So I have no say, and I did not cast a vote for Jaland. I just received the votes from the committee. And when I realized he was winner, we announced it on Wednesday at East River 9 that he was winner of the award. So just get that out there. Oh, Kris, nope. I no thumb on the scale, none of that kind of stuff. I just count the votes. Jaland, you scored 2,000 points this season in your high school career. What was the highlight of your season this year?
I mean, I don't think there was a specific highlight. Just us making it all the way to the regional finals. I mean, that was just great. I mean, just being able to play with my brother in this group, it was just overall just a great time. And I can't pinpoint a specific time where it was just a highlight of my senior year. All of it was just great because I had a great time playing out there with my teammates. I had a great time with my coach, and it was just great overall.
Andy, James, you guys have any questions for the winner of the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award, Jaland Lowe?
For sure, I'll go first. First, Jaland, congratulations on winning the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award and really on a great season. But obviously, of course, right now we are peak Final Four season. We had the two games last night, the crazy first game between Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. It's San Diego State and UConn in the national championship. You got anyone? Are you going to be looking forward to the national championship game?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted Miami to win yesterday because ACC team, but UConn was looking really good. But I mean, we've got a former Houston Kincaid player, Jaden Ledee, on San Diego State, so I'm happy for him. But I don't know. I think UConn looked a little good last night, so I'm gonna have to go with UConn in the championship.
James, how about you?
Yeah, congrats, Jaland, on winning the award. And I was just wondering, when you look at, the names of, some Houston greats that have won that award, just being mentioned in the company with them and just sort of what they've gone on to do. Can you talk a little bit about that now that you're part of that group?
I mean, it's just great. I mean, those guys in that category, the names and the statue of their names and where they are right now, I mean, it's just a blessing to have my name incorporated with theirs, and that's awesome because those guys, they're legends in the city, and they're still doing a lot more right now to this day. And just to be part of that, I mean, overall, it's just really, really great.
Jalen, with the men's Final Four here in Houston, I think that your college coaches are in town. Have you had a chance to spend time with them, and have they talked to you about winning the award?
Yeah, one of my coaches is down here. He came down to watch one of our pit players in the dunk contest, but I haven't seen him. But overall, both coaches, Coach Capel and Coach Brown, they both called me and texted me and congratulated me on the award, and just for saying how big this award was, and just to know that overall it was a great achievement.
And I think we're going to try to bring in Willy Gibson here because he might have a question for you or want to congratulate you. Willy's getting a suntan or something. He's outside chilling. What's up, Willy Gibson?
Gentlemen,
Yeah, you got seagulls in the background too.
How you doing, Willy?
Parts unknown. Now, I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing great. You got a question for a comment for Jaland Lowe?
I do. First and foremost, congratulations, young man, on the prestigious honor. And as far as, I'm not sure if you've been asked this, I apologize. I jumped on late, but as far as the pit signing, do you have plans to go in early, or do you have plans to go in over the summer, or what are your plans as far as, or have you been thought that far ahead?
Yeah, so the plan right now is just probably go up there second and third week of June and start summer workouts with the team at the end of June because they start their little session together as a team. So I plan to head up there about the second week of June.
And I want to, Jalen, correct me if I'm wrong. We retweeted your winning the award Wednesday. It looked like you got a lot of love from Pitt fans. So did you hear from any Panther fans about winning the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Pitt fans, they're great. They stay updated with everything, and they're just really involved with whatever my name is involved with. So I'm just glad that they recognize that and I get love from them.
All right. Who's driving you right now, man? Is your mom or your dad?
My mom, she's driving right now.
Well,
coming back from my brother's game.
Did he win? His team win?
No, they lost by 4 at the end.
How good is the next one in line?
Oh no, he's pretty good. He's really good actually. I mean, he's really got into a good place now over at Marshall, where he's able to display his talents now. So he's learning and growing a lot right now.
What have you learned from Coach Ronnie Courtney during your time at Marshall?
That just leadership. He taught me how to be a better leader. Hello?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so he just taught me overall how to be a better leader, and just to help guide my team in different ways, and just be able to just maneuver some things around, and just overall just that leadership role, being out there and having to be the most vocal person, and that's it.
And one last thing, because I want to let you get spend time with the family as y'all head back. What areas would you like to improve in your first year at Pitt?
My strength for sure, and then probably my range. I want to extend my range a little bit on my 3-point shot.
All right, as you wrap it up, Andy, James, and Will, y'all got any more questions for Jaland Lowe?
I got one more. Just watching Pitt from afar this year, just the program getting back to, being ranked and winning a few games in the tournament, just talk about the trajectory and just how exciting it is to go into a time where, Pitt basketball is sort of on the rise again.
I mean, it's amazing because right now people didn't really think Pitt was going to be such a great team. They had them ranked in 14th in the ACC. But after what they just proved this year, I mean, it's great going into the situation because now you've got people watching you, and you've got a chip on your shoulder. They know that we got to pick up some pieces, and that's what we're going to try and do.
Well, James, how about you guys? Anything left? Any other thing you want to ask Jaland?
No
I think we're
questions
good.
from me. I just wish you.
All right. Well, Jaland Lowe, thank you very much, man. Tell your mom we said thank you very much for what she's done for you and to your dad. We said hi as well, and keep in touch. And trust me, man, we'll be following your career at Pitt. So once again, congrats to you, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Jalen, one last thing before you go. Oh, got it.
Yo, he left.
No. I'm just gonna tell him. Take it easy on the Tar Heels whenever you get a chance. Just take it a little easier.
Wow, Will, is it like that now, man?
It is.
You losing players to Duke now, Will. What's your thoughts on
Hey.
Caleb Love, man? I mean, that's
you know that was yesterday. It was April Fools, man. Come on, that's April Fools. Cut it out.
Oh my goodness. But all right. That was Jaland Lowe, the winner of the 2023 Guy V. Lewis Award. Congrats to him. Cougar fans, we're going to talk now some news. I got a lot of things to say about women's basketball. Congrats to LSU winning the national championship, 102-85 over Iowa. Way too many fouls called in that game. Refs got involved way too much. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're going to talk about Mr. Tramon Mark here for the next few minutes on Folks Talking Sports. And, of course, notice, no sponsor right now currently. Our sponsorship from 5 Star Properties ended last month. So if you want to be a sponsor of the show, please contact me at thehr.com. But kgardner@thehr.com. On email, or just hit me on Twitter there as well, or Andy. And we'll take care of you, accommodate you for your sponsorship, because the Big 12 is almost here for Houston, and we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be doing Folks Talking Sports during the summer, during the season, during the fall, football season, basketball season, all of those things. So don't worry about that. We're not going anywhere. But go to you first, Andy and James. Either one of you want to take it first. Tramon Mark deciding to enter the transfer portal. Your thoughts?
James, you got it?
I mean, sure. The NBA, I mean, he I don't think he'll actually go through. He declared for the draft while maintaining his eligibility along with entering the portal. I don't think he'll actually, stay in the draft. That part didn't surprise me. Jamal Shedd's doing the same thing. But I was a little caught off guard, and I think a lot of people in Houston were, just with his decision to transfer, just given that, your leading scorer and Marcus Sasser's gone. Next year, he'd probably be one of the focal points of the offense. This year, he was probably the third option. And just given Houston's success, people talk about them losing starters each year, but they're still one of the top teams every year with what Kelvin Sampson has done. So I was definitely surprised that to see him enter his name into the portal. I don't know exactly where he'll end up, but Houston now has a few different shoes to fill. I still think Jamal Shedd will come back, even though he's testing out the waters. But best case scenario for Houston is you get Jamal Shedd and Juwan Roberts. You have 2 starters back, and then you got to replace the other 3. So we'll see what happens.
Andy, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts similar to James. I was stunned. I was stunned that not the part of testing NBA waters. We all kind of assumed, and we mentioned in the last Let's Rage Cougs that we had, that really it was due diligence for both Shedd and Mark to test NBA waters, go through the process, get that feedback. Now, in terms of entering the transfer portal, absolutely, it was shocking for me because, like the points James said, you'd expect with them losing Sasser, losing Jarvis Walker, this would really be a team in 23-24 where you really get to see, certainly the bulk of the offense maybe going through Tramon, and certainly both Tramon Mark and Jamal Shedd, him being that go-to scorer for the team. And for whatever reason, he had his reasons, personal reasons, quote unquote, from the press release that the Houston Cougars sent out shortly after the Twitter post that Tramon Mark made. But then I was really surprised when, and Kris, you've heard this as well. Apparently, this is something that Tramon Mark knew he was going to do for weeks, and I've heard as early as 2 months ago where he was committed that he was no longer going to be with the Houston Cougars after this season, which in and of itself is shocking. Again, just to think where you'd figure he'd kind of be slotted, year in and year out. There's always kind of a go-to guard. I mean, just think of the last few seasons when you think of a team that's just going back to when they went to the Final Four, they had relied heavily on Quentin Grimes. You saw his ascension, and then the last couple of seasons, I know the 21-22 was a little bit different because of the injuries, but this past season, Marcus Sasser kind of grew into that role. You figured that it kind of be slotted for Mark to be that next guard in line to kind of carry the bulk of the torch when it comes to Houston in the offensive perspective. Then to add on to that it was something that he had in the back of his mind throughout the whole process certainly makes it a lot more interesting, and it's from an outside perspective, it's puzzling, to be honest. I'm curious to figure out what exactly kind of is the reasoning behind it. And if you look at it from a fan perspective, to hear that he knew that he was going to be gone for a while kind of, makes you think where the whole process was throughout to the end of the season from a mentality standpoint.
Didn't surprise me one bit. I got called, said, hey, don't be surprised if Tramon Mark enters the portal. I said, okay. Tramon Mark was at UH 3 years, 3 seasons. He and this is my opinion, he's getting bad advice from his people, his, what do you even call them? Handlers, friends, family, whatever. Initially, his goal or their goal was to be at UH 2 years and then go pro. He got hurt second year, so he wasn't going to go pro after his second year. So he came back for the 3rd year. So I'm not surprised at all. Will, Andy, James, anybody who follows me on Twitter, who knows me, follows me on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, knows where I stand with transfers. If you don't want to be here, bye. Bye. I don't miss you. Good luck to Tramon. Good luck to him. Good luck to his family and his friends. Kelvin Sampson and the staff will be fine. They weren't surprised by this move. They'll be fine. They'll hit the transfer portal and fill a Marcus Sasser role and now a Tramon Mark role. So I know I was not shocked. Like I said, just in conversations with people I trust, don't be surprised when Tramon Mark enters a portal. All right, cool. I wasn't going to post it because that's Tramon's decision to announce. Let him tweet that out there. I'm not going to be, those national folks will who do that kind of stuff. That's his news to share. But yeah, I knew about it. Good luck to him. Either you want to be with the program or you don't. And when Andy said, and Chris Ball put it out there as well about this was in the works or thought about for 2 months, kind of shows you where his head's at. I think these last 2 months. So you take that for what it's worth as well. And I hope it works out better for him than Armani Brooks. And his decision to just leave and not come back, not into the portal. But Andy, James, guys, how many Caleb Mills? Let's talk about that too, Andy and James. How many Cougars who have left early, transferred, pick either one, and have had success in their next destination?
Not many. I mean, you look at it, the best decision you look at in recent years was Quentin Grimes, right? He comes out of high school, one of the top recruits in the country. Kansas doesn't work out. He could have gone pro after his first year at UH, but he was just average. He comes back for another year, and then he's a first rounder. When you look, previously you mentioned Armani. If he would have stayed another year, that probably works out for him better. I don't think, even if Tramon decides to stay in the draft, I don't think he gets drafted.
Agreed.
And he'll probably have to do the similar route, either G League, try to work your way through, or make some noise overseas somehow. And I mean, yeah, you look in the past, it just hasn't worked out for the most part. And I mean, it just, one of the things Houston prides himself on, and Kelvin Sampson, is the player development. And, you know, each year you get under Sampson in that program betters you for the future. And we've talked about this in the past. You know, Houston isn't the school that's gotten the Jarris Walkers in the past. You know, they've gotten these underrated sort of kids that not many people have looked, and now they've turned them into some things. So it's not like these kids are coming into Houston where it's like a shade and sharp. You don't even have to play a college game and you're still a lottery pick. So yeah, I just think, I mean, history has shown it's probably leaving UH early has not fared well for people in the past.
What do you say, Andy?
I think certainly if you look at it from a trend perspective, I agree with James in terms of I don't see him keeping his name in the NBA draft. I'm pretty sure he'll be back for what would technically be his redshirt junior year because of that injury that he had last season. But on the topic of Caleb Mills, because Kris, you brought it up, and again, going from the national report, this is John Rothstein of CBS Sports and the other outlets that he does work for. He tweeted out Saturday morning, I believe, was that Caleb Mills had contact with Houston as a possible, because he just entered the transfer portal as well. And man, I define contact. If Caleb Mills were to return to Houston, that would be.
We would all be shocked.
Everything
out of this world.
The old saying that hell froze over, I would be stunned if that were to happen. I guess you could never say never, but I'm curious to learn more about what in contact means. But yeah, from a Tramon Mark perspective, it's certainly interesting, and what school he ends up going to. I've heard that potentially there's interest from the SEC, even another Big 12 school that would be interesting, obviously, because Houston's going to make that jump into the Big 12 if he were to land in a Big 12 school. Hey, you get to see Tramon Mark next season as an opponent if he does decide to come back. But to the point, Kris, especially when it comes to the mentality standpoint of if he indeed knew that he was going to make this decision weeks ago, it's interesting. I mean, he didn't have that strong of a finish this season, and outside of that second round game against Auburn, which, I mean, kudos to him because he really carried Houston into the Sweet 16 game. But when you think about it, we knew from the get-go that Jarris Walker was going to be a one and done player, and even Marcus Sasser, I know he came back for his senior year, but he was going to be heading to the NBA after this year regardless. It just makes you wonder if maybe outside factors stop this team from reaching its true potential.
And Coach Sampson touched on it a few times about outside factors, especially at home games.
Definitely.
But Tramon Mark, I'll take it from a basketball perspective as well. Tramon Mark, Houston's going to the Big 12, and Apollo, yes, the Cougs will have the transfer portal without question.
Definitely,
they're going to do that regardless, whether Tramon came back or not. They'll do that regardless because they need to get more experienced players, for sure. But the Cougs heading to the Big 12, more exposure, more TV games, better competition. Tramon would have had the ball in his hands more often next season. He and his people decided to leave that situation. That's his and their choice. If NIL was a factor, that's his and their choice as well. Hey, I wish him the best of luck, but I'm not going to lose sleep over him leaving. Because Coach Sampson has said many times this season and previous years at Houston, either you're 2 feet in or you're not. And you, Andy, and Chris Baldwin saying that Tramon, for months, have been thinking about this indicates that he was not 2 feet in this season down the stretch. Then he should goodbye to him. Either you're 2 feet in or you're not. Well, I want to get your thoughts on this. And I'm not hating on Tramon or his people. I wish him the best of luck. I think they're making a wrong decision, but he's doing what he believes is best for him. But the Cougs are now a nationally relevant program going to a better basketball conference. So the fact that Tramon and his people have chosen to leave that situation is curious to me. What say you, Mr. Gibson? You muted, Will. There you go. Oh, now you muted again. There we go.
All right. I actually was going to ask the same thing. Was there, I mean, okay, 2 months ago, it was indicated that he was ready to leave, but was there any issue between he and the coaching staff? Any issue between him and Coach Sampson?
Nothing that we saw, no.
Okay.
Nothing that we saw,
okay.
no.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, so then that being said, I don't understand, 3 years in, knowing that you're coming back as a featured player in a Power 5 conference. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. You guys are closer to the program than I, but just as someone looking at the facts as they are, it doesn't make sense. I wish him well, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I wish him well. And there's so far, Andy, James, you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this. So far, there does not seem to be, well, how do I say this? When Caleb Mills left, he didn't leave on the best of terms. Okay. So far, that does not seem to be the case with Tramon Mark. What do you guys say about that?
No, I agree 100%. This feels like, I don't know if mutual will be the right word, but I don't think there's certainly not, there's no bad blood in terms of when Caleb Mills left. And when Mills left, it was really, really awkward might not be the right word, but you could tell just that first availability that Kelvin Sampson had after Mills transferred. He didn't really want to touch on it. He didn't want to talk about Mills. And at the end of the day, Houston kept going. I mean, that was the year that they went to the Final Four after losing Caleb Mills in early January. So I don't think with Mark's reasoning it's anything at that level. And again, it waited until the offseason. If he truly was two months out knowing that he was going to leave Houston, it would have been something. If he would have pulled the Caleb Mills and just left middle of the season, middle of the conference season, which he didn't do. He played it out. But I think, at the end of the day, whatever his reasoning is, hopefully it does work out for him. From a outside perspective, again, not knowing the meat and potatoes of that reasoning, it's a little bit odd because, from an outside, you would imagine that he would certainly get a much more featured role. And again, in the Big 12, but who knows, whatever the outside factors are. And I think the biggest takeaway from all this is kind of like, again, the biggest word that Houston used after they lost to Miami in the Sweet 16, they didn't want to use it, but certainly from a fan perspective, it was kind of like, they felt like they could have done more from their NCAA tournament run. And when something like this leaks out, and again, you don't want to put it in there, but it just, from a personal experience, when you know that you're not going to be there after a certain time, it's hard to get fully engaged, even if you don't necessarily are like, oh, I'm checked out, I don't care. Even though if you're still committed, it's hard to be 100% bought in, even if like in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I'll be gone after. And to me, from a fan perspective, that kind of leaves you with the big what if everyone would have been fully invested. Like maybe it is Houston playing against San Diego State tomorrow, or at the very least, maybe they did get to play yesterday, which I think that's probably where it maybe not stings, but it certainly lingers in the back of your mind if you're from a fan perspective.
James, what do you say?
Yeah, I think Andy hit on some good points. Obviously, the big difference, like he hit on, was, Caleb Mills was a middle of the season type deal where, he stepped away from the program initially, and then a few days later, it was announced he was going to, explore other options, where Tramon stuck it out. I think, I mean, I haven't heard any bad blood things, and from everything I've heard, and I think, I mean, y'all have all mentioned it, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing. It's just, like, this was 100% Tramon and his people. Like, I haven't heard anything about, Sampson or anyone being like, you're not in our plans. Like, I think they were going to welcome him back for another year. But yeah, I don't think he left on on the same terms as Caleb. It will be interesting, like Andy said, to try to find out more, just behind the reasoning and stuff. But yeah.
And
Can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
And I know I'm about to lot of you jump off because my iPad is low.
Okay.
But I'm just curious, I've heard the term his people, Tramon and his people. Who are his people?
AAU coaches, influencers, family, people like that.
Okay. Because I'm not saying, I guess for me, when I hear that, it's like a triggering, the Phil Jackson and posse thing. Like,
No, it's
and I know you guys don't mean that, and
Yeah.
I know you guys don't mean that, but anytime I hear, well, it's people, I'm like, well, who are these proverbial people? But I got it.
No, it's a fair question, but honestly, in this day and age, with Joe putting it out there, just about every college kid has some influence of people. It's just a question of who they are.
Without question.
So it's an umbrella term for, because some it could be NIL folks, some it could be relatives, some it could be friends, some it could be coaches from high school or AAU days. So it's a little bit of depends on the folks, because other current Cougs, they also have people who the staff has to keep in the loop, keep happy, to make sure those guys return to the program.
Sure.
That's just the way it is. But Will, thanks very much, man, for your time, and we appreciate you chiming in. Oh, real quick before you run out.
Yep.
Just share your thoughts on spring football, Ohio State, and anything you want to say about the importance or lack thereof of the spring game.
Oh yeah, without question. Yesterday was practice 7 of 15, halfway through. Quarterback battle is still ongoing between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord. No front runner definitively has stepped forward. The importance of spring games. I think that you guys know, and I kind of got into a bit of a discussion with some Houston fans, Houston supporters, Houston people, if you will, a couple days ago about the spring game. It's just a dying fad. And I said, well, no. Ohio State had 60,000 at their spring game last year, which was low, to be completely transparent. It was a 50-degree day, and 60,000 showed up for a spring game. This year's spring game is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday, actually, April 15th. Tickets went on sale February 10. I don't have a number yet of where they are, but I know you mentioned Colorado in your post earlier. Colorado's spring game is, I believe, the only one being broadcast by ESPN. And their numbers, tickets sold, is phenomenal. Right
45,000.
So,
yeah.
45,000.
Sold out.
45,000. So I don't know that classifies as a dying fad to me.
Correct.
So that was it. But I appreciate the time, gentlemen. I don't want to. I'm low, so I just want to jump off before I get cut off.
Okay,
but
man.
I appreciate you guys, man. As always, we'll talk soon.
All right, take care, Will.
Yes, sir.
Well, Will, thank you. Enjoy wherever you are. And those birds, I keep thinking you're at the beach, Will.
We'll talk offline. Hey, I'll say this. In the spirit of the WrestleMania weekend, wrestling, wrestlers, they have parts unknown. I'm in parts unknown right now.
All right.
Good enough, Will. All right.
Enjoy
that. Take care.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon.
And as Will brought up, spring game, I did some checking, and the teams who will be in the Big 12 as of July 1st of this year, only Oklahoma State and I think K-State will not have a spring game, spring showcase, something along those lines. Oklahoma State usually has one, but this year they won't because their stadium is undergoing some renovations construction. And a few of the teams, Baylor for one, their green and gold game will be streamed on ESPN Plus April 22nd. BYU had their game a few days ago on March 31st. It was on ESPN Plus. Texas Tech spring game, April 22nd, will be streamed on ESPN Plus. Andy, James, do you get a theme here?
Yeah.
The Cougs spring game is when?
Friday, this upcoming Friday.
And how much promotion has been for it?
There's been some.
Not much.
There's been some. It'll be no, I was just gonna say it'll be Friday. I'll be curious to see the turnout for that event, which is free to the public, but like date back to last year, it seemed like mostly family was there. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. But again, when you look at where the Houston football program is now compared to Colorado, where obviously they have a lot of buzz and excitement over the change that's going on in their program, and well, Ohio State's just the premier brand. I don't know. It's Houston is not at that level. Colorado's different. They're not at that level. Just keep it straight. Which is, I mean, it's a point.
And Cincinnati has an official sponsor for their spring game. I'm not going to name them because they're not paying us here on Folks Talking Sports, but the Bearcats, who are joining the Big 12, just like the Cougs, have a title sponsor for their spring game that will take place April 15th. Think about that. Okay, a title sponsor for a spring football game. So, as Andy said, Houston's not ready. I've said it. Houston Athletics is not ready for big-time football, big-time marketing, big-time athletics in terms of promotions, in terms of marketing, in terms of a lot of different things. Areas of improvement are needed. And other than the tweet, I have not seen any marketing for the spring game. And Andy, I think it was you or a friend of mine, I think Derek, D Skills H-Town, tweeted from a fan, UH alum, I don't believe it was a troll, asking about or lamenting that the UH spring game was a week away or 10 days away and had been nothing mentioned about it. And I got some comments. I think Will's part of that thread, Twitter thread. And then a day or so later, UH football Twitter account tweeted 1 week away from the spring game. So, got to do better. We talked about this many times during Folks Talking Sports, that UH football does not do a good job of promoting itself. UH football does not have an equivalent of Lawrence Sampson in the program to market and promote itself. That's an issue. If there's no mention of the spring game on radio or in the newspapers or and you tell me, TikTok, Instagram, other social media, how are fans like Inorbiters who aren't on Twitter going to know about the spring game?
Well, I just saw, it looks like they only have 2 tweets about it. The first tweet came February 24th when they said Houston begins 15 spring 15 practice in the spring slated. I guess that following upcoming Tuesday was going to be the first day of the spring practices, and then it would be capped off by the spring game on April 7th at TDECU Stadium, and then a lot of posts. And come March 31st, hey, 1 week away to the spring game.
Yeah, and I just looked on uhcougars.com, which is the athletic website, and the only thing that mentions the spring game that I can find is the February 24th when it talks about opening spring practice, but that it doesn't even highlight it in the headline. It's not until the second graph where it's like the spring game will be held on April 7th. There's no like post like previewing UH's spring game or anything like that, what to expect.
And also, let me say this: when I talked about the other spring games for the Big 12 teams, and Alan, there's no specific name the Cougars are targeting in the portal. We are all trying to find out, but sometime this week we'll get a better indication of who that is. Might even get some names for you. But some of the Big 12 schools have had or have coaches have media availabilities after their spring practices. I've seen them posted on their particular school websites about the spring practices happening so far. Spring games, spring media availabilities. Some of them are even on Big 12 Now and ESPN Plus. Okay, think about what I'm saying. Football coaches, college coaches in the Big 12 have had media sessions discussing spring practice and they are posted on their school websites and or YouTube and or ESPN Plus or other platforms about their spring practices for football. UH, Coach Holgerson, it's a missed opportunity.
Well, they've had.
Go ahead.
They've had two. They've had two public ones. They had one where Dana Holgerson spoke on the first day of spring, and then the new offensive line coach spoke, I want to say the week after, and I think during that availability they had a few players as well, and then they had the pro day, Houston's pro day. Holgerson spoke as well, so I think that's been 3 over the course of the spring, and they'll have more
this week.
Yeah,
they'll have. When was the pro day scheduled, Andy?
The Thursday before the Houston basketball team played in the Sweet 16.
So when most of the sports media was out of town, right?
Well,
so the planning of that could have been better. But are those links on the UH Cougars website?
I believe they posted it. They posted them on their YouTube.
That's good. That's an improvement. But are they posted on uhcougars.com?
I'm not sure about UH Cougars.
So you got to reach your fans wherever they are. Post links to them in general area or general releases, football, etc. But it's an improvement. But there has to be more has to be done because Houston is entering a bigger brand of football. The talent level has to improve. The marketing has to improve. So there's so much that has to improve with the marquee sport of the program. Well, the biggest moneymaker of the program, men's basketball, is a marquee sport of Houston athletics. And now in these final minutes of Folks Talking Sports, D-Skills, how are you? Alan, how are you? Thank you for chiming in with your comments. I'm going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. Or James put it, I think he said it was embarrassing in regards to this. Home attendance this past season, 2022-23, for women's basketball. Teams either currently in the Big 12 or will soon be in the Big 12. And for those who are joining us right now on Folks Talking Sports, we have discussed Tramon Mark's decision to leave the transfer portal. I was not surprised. Andy and James initially said they were surprised, but then doing more investigating, heard that Tramon had been thinking about it for almost 2 months. So keep that in mind. But the Cougs will enter the portal, and we're going to get back to it because I have some questions for you guys about UH men's basketball and where they go for roster construction for this coming season. But home attendance for women's hoops for Big 12. Iowa State first, 10,000 plus. This is average attendance, average per game. Texas, nearly 5,800. Texas Tech, 4,900. Oklahoma, 4,400. Baylor, roughly the same thing, 4,400. Kansas, 3,500. Kansas State, 3,250. Oklahoma State, 2,500. West Virginia, 2,200. UCF, 2,000. BYU, 1,800. Guys, notice, I have not said Houston yet. TCU, 1,600. Cincinnati, 1,000. And bringing up the rear, Houston Cougars, 775. Average home attendance for this year's Houston Cougars women's basketball team. I got the numbers from each of the schools' websites, their stat sections. 775. Honestly, that number shocked me because the previous season it was just 368. Thoughts on that, gentlemen? Who wants to go first?
It just goes to, I'll take it first, James. It just goes to show the status of the program, not only on the court, but really from a Houston Cougars fan base perspective. It's not really much interest in women's basketball here at the University of Houston from a fan perspective.
James?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show a lot of things. One big thing we've talked about plenty this year is just the lack of marketing around the program and just the promotion of it. And that's sort of what happens when you don't. Obviously, the play has been subpar for the most part, although they did, make a little run in the American Athletic Conference tournament. But, I mean, 775 is embarrassing. Just home attendance. You mentioned Iowa State, who had a decent year, but that's two regular season home games at Iowa State is like 5,000-6,000 more people than UH had in their 14 home games combined. The big schools, whether it's UConn, LSU, with the revival that's happened there, South Carolina, that's one or two games, and they've already brought in more fans than Houston does in an entire season. And I mean, yes, those numbers will jump next year for Houston in the Big 12, but a lot of it will be Baylor fans traveling down, Texas fans traveling down. So, you'll see the numbers improve, but how much is it really UH fans where, honestly, UH could be playing however many games they end up playing next year, 30-something road games for the most part, just because at least in Big 12, other fans could easily outnumber the UH fans inside Fertitta Center.
It's marketing's a part of it. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off, but marketing's a part of it. But at the end of the day, it starts with the on the court, on the field, with whatever sport you want to put it in. It starts with that because let's talk about that run that they made in the American Athletic Conference when they got to the championship game. That's the most buzz I've seen around the women's basketball team. Honestly, probably ever. Whenever they were one win away from making the NCAA tournament. And because that championship game was on ESPNU, it certainly seemed like more people, or ESPNU or ESPN2, I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was you. Yeah.
There was certainly a lot more one, accessibility for people to be able to tune in, and there was more buzz, there was more interest. But for many, that was the first time they had seen the women's basketball team all season. And
what did they do?
they
They had a
they
brick
couldn't.
fest.
Exactly, that's what I was going to get to. The fans couldn't wrap their mind around how that second half went and their inability to make baskets, which had been the story of the team really for most of the season, for the entire season, honestly. And that's where it starts. Yeah, if both programs, and it's not just the women's team, it's programs outside of men's basketball and a few of the other sports as well, where if there's not consistency, I mean, look at it from the volleyball team perspective. They've gotten to a point where they're consistently winning games, going back to the 2019 season when David Rare, the head coach of the volleyball team, took over, and they've steadily seen that improvement this season when they had their strongest season in decades. You know, they were setting attendance records. It seemed like a point every game out, which I think that's the biggest factor, and marketing's a part of it. But I think at the end of the day, it goes to what's the actual product being sold on the court or on the field, or wherever it's being played.
And let's just say a few more things. If anybody saw today's LSU Iowa women's championship game and the shot making in that game, and yes, LSU made a lot of threes, shot out of their minds.
Put up over 100 points.
Shot out of their minds. But anybody watching today's women's title game, you cannot, if you're being objective, there's no way in the world you should believe that Houston women's basketball is remotely close to the talent on display in the championship game, in the semifinals, in the Final Four. Nowhere close. Skill level, shot making, ball movement, any of that. Nowhere close. So add all that to attendance of less than 800 per home game. Add that to Ronald Hughey being the lowest paid coach in the new Big 12. How much does Tillman care about women's basketball? How much does Renu Couture care about women's basketball? Her interview she did for Houston Matters on Houston Public Media website, she mentioned a lot of things, but in there she talked about the move to the Big 12, and she said that they're going into the Big 12 to compete for championships. Really? Have you looked at the women's basketball program? Give me a break. Have you looked at the attendance for women's basketball? Give me a break. And
I'm looking at attendance for football too.
Football as well. You know, which again, football is supposed to be the moneymaker for a program.
Which again, it goes back to the consistency and on the field production.
Exactly. And the UH East Carolina championship game, conference title game, was 44-43. The combined turnovers, the shooting was just awful. It's nowhere close to big time women's college basketball. And now the Cougars are going into the Big 12 women's basketball, of course, with whole athletics going to the Big 12. And the Big 12 women's hoops is kind of plateaued because Baylor is not a national program right now. But every other team, women's team in the Big 12 is still better than Houston. So what does that say about the state of women's basketball at Houston and the fact that they're bringing back Ronald Hughey for a 10th year, even though he's made 0 trips to the tournament? Anybody comment on that?
I mean, it's there's, from a competitive standpoint, it's honestly just about hiring the right people. Your argument in terms of the women's basketball team from a financial perspective, at least from an optics point of view, and you could make the argument that there is not enough resources being allocated from a financial perspective to be able to turn around the program. But it also is about hiring the right person, because look at the football program. Will be year four for Dana Holgerson, 5, I believe, and it's gonna be it's expected to be a really difficult process in the first year in the Big 12. So I don't know, when it comes to some programs, it seems like it's kind of just stuck in, and maybe not stuck in mud, but it's certainly there's just not excitement about those programs. And looking at it from the women's basketball perspective, Kris, you and I here on Folks Talking Sports, we talked about it after last season when, following Houston's the 21 year when they were the first team out of the NCAA tournament. They followed it up with a lackluster season where they didn't come close. I know they made that run in the NIT, but really, if a move was going to be made, it should have been that year to allow a new coach to give that one season in the American to kind of get their feet established and head into the Big 12 with, at least roots tied into the program, trying to go into a new conference. That didn't happen. The team had another up and down year. They made that run in the conference tournament, weren't able to get over the hump and get into the NCAA tournament. And I think that the word to use, it's kind of stuck. It's stuck because now that he's coming back, that Ron Hughes coming back, I get the argument that you don't want to throw in a new coach into basically the Sharks of trying to turn over the program. But what's really the alternative that they're going with is kind of like, well,
it's Groundhog Day. Yeah.
And that's hard to build excitement from that.
And here's another example. Alan, I'm just about to bring her up. Transfer from Pitt, ACC school, Malia Johnson. Malia Johnson shot 38% from the floor this year at Pitt. 30.8 from 3. Average 8.5 points, 3.6 rebounds in 30 games. 29 free throw attempts. 30 games, 29 free throw attempts. 30.8% from 3. Those numbers indicate to me she's not a good shooter. And I'm going to say this, it sounds crass to say. Well, based on the fact she's not a good shooter, she's a Houston Cougar under Ronald Huey, because the whole team can't shoot. They can't make shots. So you add a 30.8% three-point shooter, under 40% overall to your roster as you go to the Big 12. Over and over. It's like, and I'm not sure who was it, Turd Ferguson 87. I don't believe it's Pez that doesn't care. I think it's folks higher up than Pez, like Tillman, like Chancellor Couture. They don't care. Because if they cared enough, they could tell Pesman, what is going on here? What are we doing? But if they don't care, our Pez can tell us, media, well, we're going to give Ron another chance. We don't believe it's right to change the first year in the Big 12. Huh?
And that's the thing. The thing about that is how, and I talked on it on the Pod Slam Jamma podcast. Free plug, by the way, go subscribe to the Pod Slam Jamma YouTube channel. But we discussed the state of the women's basketball team, and for me, I mean, how can you accurately judge Huey this season? Because if they go out there and they just get, trounced night in and night out in the Big 12, it's expected, right? They struggled in the American. So, what would the justification be to fire Ron Huey after next season? We didn't meet expectations. It was too harsh in the Big 12. And if they, they're expected to be in the basement of the Big 12 if they were to get towards the middle of the Big 12, which we talked about how crazy it would be if Caleb Mills returned to the men's basketball program. I think that would be at that level with what's been shown. It's still not a turnaround of getting to the ultimate goal, which should be to make to the NCAA tournament. I think it's just really difficult. They're in a position where it's hard to kind of judge success because it's kind of that. I don't know if you could accurately say as an excuse, but you're kind of building in that situation again. Going back to what I've kind of reiterated, it just seems like they're stuck because as they go out and have a bad season, you can justify by saying, "Well, it's the first year in the Big 12. What did you expect?" Whereas if you would have made a change and brought someone else new, at least you could have steps.
You could turn the page.
Right. And I mean, again, that's just kind of the word with that program. I personally just don't know how you accurately can judge them fairly, Ron Huey, because even then, I'd imagine what's the difference between year 1 and year 2 if you bring in a new coach after next season?
And James, I'm bring you in on this, but real quick, I've heard from college coaches, high school coaches, and they say to me, Kris, what is Houston doing? What is Huey doing? He's got to bring in better talent. They're not ready for the Big 12. I hear that all the time. But James, I want to get your thoughts on UH baseball. Surprised many of us. Won a series over 8th ranked East Carolina. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How, James? How?
I mean, they were all close games. Today, I believe it was the 7th inning. Alex Lopez hit kind of a crazy homer off the foul pole to break a 4-4 tie and push him up. And then Cam Nickens, who's been as hot as anyone in college baseball, walked off the Pirates on Friday night in the series opener. Obviously, it's a step in the right direction, but there's still a long way to go with just how poorly non-conference season went for UH. And I mean, if they can build on this, I mean, they gotta be able to build on this if they want any chance of making the tournament, because this series just gets them back to 500. They've already lost a couple. I mean, we've talked about it earlier, but they've lost to Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and Incarnate Word, UT-RGV twice, UT Arlington. They got blown out, lost by 13. They lost to Sam Houston. So they've had some losses where, you expect those wins. So yes, this weekend's a good step for the program over, one of the better teams in college baseball, but there's still a long way for them to go. And yeah.
To add on to James's point, just so we're not signaling out Ron Huey or women's basketball, because baseball arguably has been in the same position over the course of the last 5 years, where it's been stuck in neutral with that program. Now, granted, like James mentioned, if they go on an incredible conference tournament run, or not tournament, conference schedule run, and they make it to the NCAA tournament, congratulations. But for the past, going back to 2018, it's been a program that has struggled they haven't made it to the NCAA tournament either, and the best season they've had fell short in the conference tournament as well over the course of, I believe it was 21 or 22. But it's just, when you think of those programs, I mean, you can toss in softball as well. I know they had a good year in 2019 or 2020, one of those years as well. But I mean, there's just a lot of, and I hate to say this word, but there's just a lot of mediocrity with those programs where, I mean, there's not consistent excitement for them.
Yeah.
And there's not change. I don't know, maybe that's just the most patient administration in college sports.
Yeah, it's been 4 seasons, not including this season, since the baseball program's been in the NCAA tournament. And all the way back to 2014 until they were in a super regional, which is the baseball equivalent of like Sweet 16, Elite 8. So yeah, there's been a drought there, and I think Andy brings up good points that, I mean, yes, we've talked a lot about women's basketball, but you can see it in these other programs as well. And again, many people thought Todd Whitting would be gone sooner than it has now, but he's stuck around, similar to Huey.
Yep, and Whitting is in the last year of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
No one, well, hardly anyone outside of the program believes he'll be back. Believes he'll be at Houston when Houston is in the Big 12. Outside of the program, okay? Who knows what they're thinking inside the program? But if the administration is serious about competing for championships in the Big 12, things have to change in baseball for the better. In baseball, softball, women's basketball, football. What else? How's golf doing? How are the Cougars in golf? Are they okay? Are they Big 12 ready?
They're okay. They're not gonna make a ton of noise in the Big 12. They have both on the men's and women's side a player or two that occasionally stands out and competes for, either takes the tournament title individually or finishes top 5, 10 on the leaderboard. But team wise, they're not going to be competing for a Big 12 title or anything nationally.
And see, that's a problem, because I'm going to put on my UH alum hat. As an alum, I want to see UH athletics shine in every sport. It's not feasible to shine in every sport every year, but sucking in the majority of sports is too much every year. Competitive, be good, and compete for championships. We're just talking about what the administration has said. They expect to compete for championships. They said that. It's not us. They've said that. Track and field, yes. Swimming and diving, they're shining. Oh, yes. I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, James.
Volleyball will be in the mix.
Volleyball, we'll see as well. They should be competitive.
I was just going to throw this out here. I just looked it up. Golf Week, their latest rankings in college golf for men on the men's side. I can't find the women's one. Came out on March 29th, so fairly recent, and Houston is 53rd nationally.
Yeah. And Alan Tran about Jalen Cook, yeah, we discussed him. We touched on him in previous Let's Rate Coug shows. So I should hope to hear some transfer portal names this week. Just put it like that. I think Andy and James work on it as well. But that's what I was told yesterday when I was hanging around NRG Stadium at the Final Four, men's Final Four. Wrapping it up. The Cougs, Tramon Marks in the transfer portal. The Cougs have a lot of freshmen coming in this class.
Yeah.
Then you got youngsters already with Emmanuel Sharp. On this class, Terrence Arsenault. You got Cedric Lott coming in.
I mean, it could
Cordell. What's Cordell's last name?
Jefferson.
Jojo Tugler, a finalist for the Guy V. Lewis Award.
Cedric Lott.
The Cougs are going to have to hit the portal for veterans, because
I mean, right now
there's a problem. There's a tendency. You can be too young.
Mm-hmm.
Talented, yes, but too young. So the Cougs, I think, got to hit the transfer portal to get probably at least 2 impact players, veterans, at least 2. Now, who those are, we shall see. But because some of the youngsters, incoming freshmen, you might see 1 or 2 of them redshirt out of necessity, honestly.
I mean, they have a lot of big men coming in.
Yeah. And based on Tramon leaving, Marcus leaving for the pros, I'm saying this. I would not be shocked if the staff says to Malik Wilson, Malik, thank you, man, for your time. Thank you for what you did in practice, helping make our younger guys better. But we're going to go in a different direction because of need. We need some guys to make an impact in the Big 12. And you may not be part of that direction going forward. I'm saying that. But they got to get more experience in the portal. I think they will. I don't believe it's going to be a major issue. So Coug fans, don't panic, don't freak out, because Coach Kelvin Sampson has been doing this a long time. And one last thing. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet about it. The headline of the tweet was, Bob Huggins says, I feel sorry for Houston. I listened to that segment. He didn't say that. Huggins said, I feel sorry for them, as in the 4 new programs coming into the Big 12. He did not say Houston specifically. So clickbait is clickbait. Sometimes you got to go into, listen to it, read the article, do your own investigating. But fans, Andy, James, you guys know it. We don't expect the Cougs to go 33-4 next year. We don't expect the Cougs to go 17-1 in the Big 12 next year. They're going to lose some games in the Big 12. But you know what? They'll still be a good team. They're still going to the tournament. So, Andy, what do you say about that? And we'll wrap it up. And James, you next. How can folks find you on social media?
I agree. What we've heard over the course of the last few months, years, really, when we talk about the transfer portal and really the long line, the teams of players that want to come play under Coach Kelvin Sampson and here for the program in Houston, and now that they are going to be playing in the Big 12, I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of people that are excited and would want to be a part of that. But I think that's interesting when you look at just a season ago, going back to when they made the Elite Eight, how veteran-laden that squad was with Josh Carlton, Fabian White, Tajay Moore, Kyler Edwards, to now where really the core rotation players will be Jamal Shedd if he does opt to return after testing the NBA draft, and Juwan Roberts.
Yep.
That'll be it. I know they'll still have Ramon Walker, but he redshirted. If Ramon Walker comes back, he'd redshirted.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's pretty much it. If I don't think I'm missing anyone when it comes that's been in here and it's made impact. Emmanuel Sharp, obviously, of course, that had a solid role, but he'll be his sophomore year. So 4 players, and then 3 that, if you really count them, that played this season consistent minutes that were in the rotation for the bulk of the season. And then you'll have Terrence Arsenault, who will be a sophomore, be with the program. It'll interesting time. I think I agree with you, Kris. They certainly could use veterans to add from the transfer portal.
Yeah, and adding on to your point about, just the expectations in the Big 12, look at it this year. Like the Big 12, the number 1 seed Kansas, they lost 5 games in the conference, and they were still a 1 seed, 8 overall. Oklahoma State and TCU both went 500 in Big 12 play, 9-9. They were comfortably in the NCAA tournament as 6 seeds.
Yep.
So there's going to be, I'm sure Houston fans will overreact, but it's not going to be another 33-2 or whatever, 31-2, whatever it was in the regular season. But they'll still be good. And Andy, touched on the main things of the roster. One name, I don't think it will happen, but I think the Cougs should look into is Washington State's TJ Bamba. I think just his ability to score the ball, his first time as a full-time starter, he doubled his average in points. He can shoot the 3, create stuff off. He can create his own shot, but he's also good off the dribble. I think that could be an interesting fit. I don't think that will happen just because the number of schools that have shown interest in him, and I haven't seen Houston sort of listed in that, but I think that would be someone if I was in Sampson's shoes, that's someone I would definitely take a look at.
And let's wrap it up. James, you first. how can folks follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JDM2186, and then for the next less than a month, I guess now, stuff will be on the dailycougar.com, and then I will be done as sports editor there, but all my work can be found there.
And Yanez?
Yes, sir. People can find me on Twitter at Ayanez_5. Like I plugged in earlier in the show, be sure to go hit subscribe to the Pastime and Jammy YouTube channel. We're still on the road to 1,000 subs, and of course, we'll be touching more on the Tramon Mark news and anything else that breaks ahead. The focus now turns to spring football this coming week for Houston, and just overall to add on to the perspective. It'll be interesting to see how the men's basketball team retools, because they have some pieces, but now that I'm thinking about it, geez, they're gonna have so many front court players. Juwan Roberts, Javier Francis. They have Cedric Lott, who joined the program early. Then they're gonna have Jacob McFarland, JoJo Tugler. Geez, that's a lot of front court players.
A lot of depth up front. So transfer portals should be wings and guards on the perimeter. So
they're gonna have a lot of young guards too.
Be a very young team.
This team is in an interesting position. I'm just curious to see how it kind of changes, because there's a lot of young players, but it'll be interesting how it shapes up, because I agree. I think a veteran or two to this roster is really what the team will need. But what kind of happens with all the younger players, especially some that might not have played this season, and if you bring in another veteran at their position, maybe they're in store for another season where they don't get consistent minutes.
And some young guys may decide to leave. So we shall see. It's going to be a different year. It's going to be a challenging year because of the youth currently as of April 2nd. But the Cougs need veterans. They need guys who can make shots. I think they need guys who can score on the block. I believe they have some of those in the pipeline on the roster right now. I would like to see Juwan Roberts more as a 4, not a 5. So we'll see if he and Javier Francis can play well together. It's going to be a different team, but you got to get some three-point shooting, get some impact players like a Marcus Sasser type player, guys like that. They'll do that. We'll discuss it here on Folks Talking Sports, on Let's Rage Cougs, on Pause and Majama. So thank you very much to Joe, Apollo, Allen, Terry Ferguson 97, love that name, D Skills H-Town, everybody else who's tuned in Orbiter, thank you as well. We will continue talking about the Cougs and other sports throughout the summer, the spring, the summer, on Folks Talking Sports, and on probably Pause and Majama. And Andy may have thrown a mix up a little bit of some Let's Rage Cougs outside of post-game editions, just to give fans a little taste during this off season. But you can follow me on Twitter at VHRReview. See it there in the upper corner. But follow us also on Folks Talk Sports. So thank you for everyone, for Willy Gibson chiming in. Also, thank you to Jaland Lowe, the winner of the 2023 Gavi Lewis Award, for joining us at the top of the show. Wish him good luck in his college career at Pitt. So we're going to wrap it up. Great discussion. I hope we helped a little bit calm the nerves, fears of some Coug fans. It's going to be okay. Fans of UH men's basketball, it's going to be all right. The Cougs will be okay. So for Andy, James, Willy Gibson from Places Unknown, and Jaland Lowe, I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Until next time, everybody take care. Peace.